It was a win against Stockport. A tough win, a hard-fought win, but it was a win nonetheless. It was Stockport, its lower league opposition. Maybe not read too much into it, but I've had a little look, and there's something I've read something into it as far as Behrahma's concerned, and certainly as far as the striker situation is concerned, which I'll get to in just a bit. In terms of getting through, I tell you now, I have been to too many games only to see us lose against lower league opposition. Non-league opposition? Okay, probably not. But lower league, and let's be fair, this is a club that have been a league club relatively recently, or at least they've spent 100 years of their time in existence in the Football League. I tell you what is very good, and what I do like about this is I think it's going to be a bit of a rocket up the bum for us. Had we have steamrolled them and beaten them convincingly, we may well have gone into the next game against Doncaster not thinking we had to put everything into it. I think this is going to light a fire in our belly, and if there was any doubt, any suspicion about the message that David Moyes had clearly sent out in his team selection and his substitutes and his messaging, which was we will take the cup seriously, the players will now know it. If you were sort of new to English football, I'm not talking about Mark Noble and Declan Rice and Michail Antonio, they know these things. But maybe some of the newer signings who have, come from foreign pastures, they will now know actually a lower league opposition can't be taken lightly. Now, I do feel the pitch played a major factor in what happened there. For both teams, by the way. But it was so miserable, it was so wet, it was so sodden. There were massive puddles on the pitch all over the place, and I think it played a massive part in the result. However, whilst you can look at certain things in terms of the game and think, well, this has not particularly helped us, I do think you can read a couple of things into it. And regardless of the pitch, there was something not quite right about Michail Antonio, and it really forces the issue and should hurry the issue that we need to sort this striker situation out. Now, I say this striker situation like it's been a situation for a long time. I guess in one respect it hasn't, because Sebastian Haller has only just left. They haven't even played a league game. However, the situation in terms of Michail Antonio being the only viable forward that we have to play this system has been true for quite a long time. However, we may be in a slightly different situation now, because at the moment, Michail Antonio doesn't look quite ready enough to even play like Michail Antonio. Irish Tommy, who will be along later on in the week on a video with me, he makes a really good analogy about Michail Antonio. He says he's like a train. He takes a long while to get going. And I don't think he means in his run, in his sprint. What he means is he takes a few games to get going. Once he gets 4 or 5 games, 6 games behind him, he builds up a head of steam. Then he's at fitness, and then he's very, very hard to deal with. If you remember, particularly look at the Wolves game, how Conor Cody didn't deal with him. Is a great example of Michail Antonio at his best. That's not the Michail Antonio we have at the moment. And it highlights a desperate need for us to get this striker sorted now. Because what we have a game coming up on Saturday against Burnley. Then on the following Tuesday, we have a game coming up against West Brom. I think it's clear for all to see that he's not going to be able to do both. I was surprised he got 90 minutes, which he did. 89.5 minutes, he got 90 minutes, really. I was very, very surprised to see that. I don't think Moyes had it in his mind that he wanted to do that. I think in a perfect world, Moyes picks a team, and he picked a strong team. We're 3-0 up. Odebeko comes on. Nathan Holland comes on. Maybe even Ogbonna comes off, and the new guy whose name escapes me, who we've just signed from Silkeborg, comes on and plays at centre-half. That's probably the sort of thing he wanted. He probably looked at it, David Moyes, and thought, I can use these 5 substitutes I have at my disposal and freshen the squad up. I mean, the fact that he made the substitutions that he did was a really good sign. He basically did the opposite to what he did against Everton. We'll get onto that in just a minute. So I think he probably had it in his mind that Antonio wasn't going to play the 90 minutes. He would have brought Odebeko on. Antonio plays a half. Didn't quite work out like that. It really didn't. And I do think there are small margins. the Benrahma chance doesn't hit the post. The weather's not like that. We get into an early lead. The game becomes a lot easier for us. So everyone gets wrapped in cotton wool now, particularly Michail Antonio. But in terms of the game, in terms of how he sort of went for it, I was pleased, because I want to go back to the Everton game. If you remember the Everton game, he actually took a lot of first team players with him. He had a packed bench full of the top guys. And it got to a point within the game, and we were only 1-0 down. That game was still winnable. If you remember, Calvin Phillips had an absolutely field day. And it got to a point in the game in the second half where they actually made no substitutions. He decided not to go for it at all. So I thought, why take the players up there? Why have all these good guys on the bench if you're not going to allow them to win you the game? That's not what happens in this particular one. I thought he reacted really well. I thought he saw that Yarmolenko was having a stinker. An absolute stinker in that game. And it was so bad that Declan Rice trying to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, saying, Yarmolenko, this is how you dribble, this is how you cross, this is how you do this. I felt he should have probably been a bit embarrassed by the fact that his captain was having that way. I say captain, he played like a captain, didn't he? But the fact that he had to come out of position and show him that, and because of that, Soufal wasn't functioning. No surprise at all that as soon as Yarmolenko came off, Bowen came on, the right side started to function. One of the first things we saw was an understanding between Souček and Soufal. We saw some triangles. We saw Soufal getting down on the right, crossing the ball over. Souček just headed just wide. But it was a sign of things to come. But you've got to praise David Moyes for not only recognising that, but deciding. I think it would have been almost easy for him to think, I might just let this tie go. I might let this fixture wither on the vine. Don't get me wrong, he did not want extra time. Nobody wanted that. And he found himself in a situation he didn't want to be in. But I felt his team selection to start with, and then his subsequent substitutions made a lot of sense. The fact that he got Johnson off, who'd done nothing wrong, by the way, who defended stoutly, he just knew that he was going to get more of an attacking threat by bringing Cresswell on. So he brought Cresswell on to win the game. He put Bowen on to win the game. I thought it was the right thing to do. But what I did also think was, when I looked at it, and here's the other significant thing about that, is the situation with Behrahma. And I just wonder if Behrahma has turned a little corner. There is a suspicion. Look, we're going to deal with our Burnley review with myself and Gio. Gio's got his own ideas about what's going to happen against Burnley. However, I think when he decided he was going to pull some players, the fact that he took Yarmolenko and he took Lanzini, which I believe were the right choices, but left Behrahma on, I think that's the second game in a row where he's shown some faith in Behrahma. I think in the Everton game, I think he's looked and he's given him 90 minutes, if you remember. And he almost gave him 90 minutes. He did pull him at the end for 4 hours, but again, the game was done. It basically, Behrahma played 90 minutes. Well, that's back-to-back 90 minutes. I think he's looking at it now and he's thinking, well, okay, this guy is closing down. And that's what I want to read into it. Because I think there's a place up for grabs in the next, not just the next game against Burnley, I think there's a place up for grabs in the West Ham team. I don't think there's any shift in Fornals from that left position. I think that's, when we play with 4 at the back, I think Fornals plays on the left. That's just how it happens. I think Bowen plays on the right. But there's one more position up for grabs, and it's that number 10. And as far as I can see it, it's Lanzini and it's Behrahma. At least those two should be the ones that are vying for that position. And I just wonder if Behrahma has moved forward in the pecking order in David Moyes' mind. As I say, you're having to read into things that are... Look for small signs, maybe read into things that aren't there. But I just look at it against Everton and look at that and think, okay. Now, I sort of hope that David Moyes doesn't read too much into the fact that Behrahma's tricks and flicks and stuff didn't come off today. But that is what I do put down to the pitch. I really do. The ball was getting stuck in the mud. It was getting stuck in puddles. That little flick where he drops the shoulder, looks to go one way, flicks it with his boot on the other way. Well, it wasn't. It was getting stuck in the mud, and it was just all sort of things were happening. And as a result, as the game went on, the Stockport defence found it easier and easier to deal with Behrahma. Well, there's a reason for that, because the game went on. It carried on raining, and the pitch got wetter and wetter. And I certainly felt he conducted himself a whole lot better than Andrei Yarmolenko did, who, I've already said it in this video, and I said it on review. thought was absolutely atrocious. But that was an opportunity for Yarmolenko to step up and show. To show this is the second best player that's ever come out of the Ukraine. And to say I'm a world-class player, to curl the ball in with his magic wand of a left foot. I just didn't think we saw anything of that. I think Noble came out with some credit, and I think some players managed to rise above the pitch. And I just wondered if, when you're looking at that, Benrahma was trying. I think he would have learnt an awful lot from that. But I think even in the Championship, he probably didn't see pitches that were that bad. I think that's as bad as you're likely to see. I do think, and I'm just watching that the Stockport players would have looked at Declan Rice and thought, well, this is a top class player out. I feel that their forward read would have looked at Ogbonna and thought, wow, this guy's really, really good. But I couldn't help looking at it throughout and just thinking, even though we only had a young striker on the bench, I thought Antonio was struggling so much with not only his fitness, but it seemed because of his fitness and the technique and the pitch, he was really struggling. Even though I wanted the senior players to come on and win us the game in the way that they did, there was a point in that game where I thought, actually, I think we might be better just with Odebeko on the pitch. Even though he's a youngster, I think he may be able to give us more than Michail Antonio, which brings me back to my original point, which is I'm a little bit worried about the situation. I'm certainly more worried now than I was before the game. I'm certainly more worried now than I was a day ago, because I can't believe that anyone at the club is that foolish that they will let us get to the end of the transfer window without buying the striker. I can't believe that. I know it's probably it's convenient to think that, and we've had so many bad things happen to us at West Ham, and so many bad decisions from ownership to upper management and everything like that. It's easy to think it's going to leave us as it is. He's not going to buy a striker. I think they will. But it's, as I look at this now, and it's, what is this? It's the 11th, as I record this now, the 11th of January. 11th of February, we would be in trouble. It's the 11th of January now. I don't want to leave this until the 29th. This has to be done now. We've got to get somebody in. We've got to get them playing. We've got to get them ready, because I am far from convinced that Michail Antonio is going to get up to a full head of steam without breaking down, which is exactly why I said I don't want us to buy an understudy for Michail Antonio. I want us to buy the striker that we all hoped that Sebastian Haller was going to be. I want us to buy the first team striker. If what happens, Antonio gets fit and he ends up playing up front, and then fine. But Antonio's here for another 3 years. I'm pleased about that. He's very welcome. I'm delighted about it. But Michail Antonio's fitness record is he's not going to play every game between now and the next 3 years. So any striker you bring in, you've got to bring in somebody who is of comparable and equal or better quality than him. And he's not a striker. We saw that in a couple of times. Now, either he just wasn't making the runs that a striker makes. I know he can, but it's a relatively new position for him. Or he just wasn't fit enough, or it wasn't working out for him. So I still think we're a little bit away. All in all, that was a good performance. A good result. And I say a good performance, it wasn't swashbuckling. We got it done. They weren't really under any pressure, Dawson and Ogbonna. They had a little flurry where I thought there was a possibility that they might have scored. About 65 minutes. It lasted for about a minute and then it was all over. It was us having the shots. It wasn't great. It was quite an ugly win. And at the end of it, we had to resort to be an ugly West Ham and winning from a set play. But it was a good set play. It was a well-organised set play. And I was pleased to see a short set play work. But that's what we do. That's what we're good at. Corners, set plays. And it was quite noticeable when Bowen came on. The corners got noticeably better. So we get through, and we take Doncaster a little bit more seriously. But I tell you what, I think it gives the team a little bit of a rocket. It's a long way. I saw people getting disappointed because we'd drawn Manchester United and Liverpool. Look, it ain't great, but we can beat them. Anything could happen between now and then. It really can. And on our day, we can beat them. And I guarantee you something, because I tell you what, I thought Declan Rice was sensational. Mark Noble didn't play a bad game, to be fair. I thought for the first 20 minutes, he's probably the best player on the pitch. But I still felt that Declan Rice carried himself as captain. He was trying to drive. Declan Rice was the best runner. Declan Rice was the best dribbler. Declan Rice was the best tackler. And Declan Rice was the best passer on that pitch. That's pretty outstanding. That's pretty amazing. He is a winner, and he has a desire, and he had a will to win. And I guarantee you, I'm sure they knew about the draw before they went on. And when the draw was happening and Doncaster came out, great, I'm sure all the squad relatively happy. When it came out actually after that, if we get through, that we will face either Liverpool or Manchester United, I don't think there'll be a lot that Declan Rice would have been sat there thinking, oh God, I can't believe it. It's a way that I see a lot of people reacting. Oh, it's bad news. Why always us? Woe is me, and all the rest of it. I bet Declan Rice was looking at that thinking, Liverpool, Man United, we were unlucky against them. I reckon we can beat them.